Today I'll be working on a 2014 Chevrolet Express G3500. This does have the 6.6 liter Duramax diesel in it. Alright, we're going to be putting on a new serpentine belt on the van, and this is obviously the part number. So let's go ahead and get started. The truth. Now I did get my belt from Napa, so if you end up going somewhere else, just know that the part number would be a little bit different, but they should be able to cross-reference it if anything. But let's go ahead and pop the hood on the van and get started. Before you get started on this job, just be sure the engine's good and cooled off before you start any work on it. Alright, so I made kind of a crude drawing of what's going on with the belt. I've got the alternator up top. You can kind of see it right there. Then the belt's going to drop down to, it's an idler pulley over to the tensioner, which is the one we're going to be loosening up here in a second. Down to the crank, up to the fan, over to the power steering, AC, another idler, and then back to the alternator. I always like to kind of get in there and look around and see how the belt is routed. Because I didn't even know the power steering was over here. I don't know how well you can see it. It's down inside there. But I didn't even know that was over there until I started actually looking for exactly where the belt went. I did have to do a combination of looking from up above and from down below, trying to figure out where everything goes. So this is actually going to be quite interesting, getting it out from here and then back in as well. Alright, so I got my 1/2 inch drive ratchet on the end down here where it hooks to the tensioner. My only problem is I don't have much room to work with when it goes to moving this bar. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my overflow tank for my radiator. And I'm just going to kind of angle it up out of the way. I want to leave all the hoses connected and everything. Just take out this bolt and this thing will kind of pivot, and then you can pull it all the way out and move it. Just to give me more room, so when I start moving this guy around, I have all this room to play with instead of just this amount of room. Now, as you saw, I did take off this plug right here. I did take off this hose right here just to get this reservoir up out of the way a bit better. I did plug the hose back onto here just to catch any kind of drips that may come out while I'm working. But I did splash a little bit of coolant, but it's not much. So again, that's why it's very important you work on it when it's not hot. But now we got plenty of room to move our ratchet here on our tensioner right down there. So let's go ahead and start getting this belt off. Press this over. Alright, so I don't know how well you could see what I was just doing there, but while I was pushing this way with my pry bar against the tensioner to make it flex that way, I couldn't get my hand down there to take the belt off the actual tensioner itself, so what I did was took it off the alternator right here with my right hand while I was pushing with my left hand this way. So, but now that the belt itself is loose, we can start unhooking it on all the pulleys all over the car.
Perhaps I was talking when I should have been listening.
If your van's anything like mine, I recommend wearing a pair of safety glasses when you crawl up underneath, because mine has a lot of dirt and debris and stuff that is falling on me. So these things definitely save your eyes. The only thing I had an issue with was getting it around the AC compressor. Now it's caught on something else. Let me figure out what it's caught on really quick and we'll get it all the way out of here. So it's always good to measure the old belt with the new belt just to ensure that they're the same length. The old belt actually has a GM part number on it. It's right here, the 1264234. So if you go through GM or look it up on Amazon, that's a part number you could use. All right, now we're going to start feeding our new belt through. I'm going to come up through the bottom, hook it on the crank, and then start working it through all the other pulleys. Remember just to follow our chart. If you want, you can pause the video and use this one, or if you did your own, follow that one. So either way, let's go ahead and get this thing on there. Now that I have the belt on the crank down there, I'm going to start working it up through all the pulleys up top here. Just a quick update, I've got it about halfway around all the pulleys. So it's got it coming straight up, pretty much straight up from the crank over the alternator at the moment. I've got these two left off for right now. But I go from the alternator down to the idler pulley down there. It's really hard to see. And then I've got it coming up over the air conditioner, which is, let's see if I can see it, right back there. And the way I got to it is I would stick my arm back up in here as far as I could. So you can kind of see it going down. It's back up this way. There's my fingers. And I thread it over the alternator and then down over the power steering, which is right down here where my hand's at now. And then I've got it underneath the power steering. So I'm just going to try and loop it on top of this fan pulley right here, back down the crank, and then I'm going to start working with these ones over here. It may be easier to take the air box and the charge air pipe off as well, but obviously I'm working with them on. I don't know how much easier or how much more room it's going to give you, because you still got to get down in there. So it's difficult all the way around to get this belt on and off, but it's definitely pretty hard with it on. But I'll check in with you when I'm all the way done with it. Alright, so I'm not going to lie, that was not fun at all. But I do have it over this pulley down here. Comes underneath the tensioner, just kind of loops up right here. That's going to go onto the alternator, which is right back there. And then everything else is looped down over all of its good stuff. So all I have to do now is apply tension to my pry bar here, push it that way. And then with my right hand, I'm going to get up in there and I'm going to loop it on top of the alternator. And then release the tension. This is a perfect example while you check your work. Right after I put it on the alternator, it looked like it kind of popped off right there. So I'm going to reapply tension just a little bit, move it onto the grooves, and then check the rest of the pulleys as well. But as you can see, I got it back on top of the alternator. And I think it's kind of off, yeah, on that tensioner pulley too, right down there. So I'm going to apply more tension, kind of fix it as I go, and double check all the pulleys. I routed that wrong. Alright, so this is why it's always good to double check with your paperwork. I routed this thing wrong. As you can see, it comes down off the alternator right up here. I have it rubbing on the back of the tensioner, around the tensioner pulley, and then over the idler, which is right there, where it should drop down off the alternator, around the idler, and then over to this guy, and then down to the crank. So I gotta loosen everything back up, reroute it, and then tighten it back. Alright, now they got it routed correctly down there. Let's once again put some pressure on it this way. and get it up over our alternator pulley down there.
Perhaps I was talking when I should have been listening.
And now once again, I'm going to go through, I'm going to double check all my pulleys. Make sure that the belt is routed on them properly. I don't know how well you can see down there. But now I'm going to go through, just going to double check everything. Make sure our belt is on. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get our tensioning bar out of there. Just going to kind of pop it free. There we go. Oh, and it fell, of course. Alright, now we got that out of there. Set it aside, set our pry bar aside. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my reservoir back where it belongs, right here. Just get it out of the way. That way, mainly so it secures this thing on there. And I am going to plug it back up as well. But I do want to start the van here in just a second and make sure everything's good to go. Alright, now we're going to start this bad boy up, make sure everything's good to go. Well, I don't hear any squealing from the belt, so that's always a good sign. It doesn't really get popped off anywhere. You definitely know it. But I think we're good to go. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section below and I'll try and answer them as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the background music that's in the video, please check out the artist's SoundCloud. Link is in the description.